All right, well, welcome everyone to Can We Heat Our Water Better Using the Air? This course is approved for 1 hour in continuing education units, as well as AIA, health, welfare, and safety, which may make it applicable to your state-based design or contractor license. Today, I'll be your moderator, and I am Brett Little, the program manager here at the nonprofit, the Green Home Institute, and we're going to be talking a little bit about just new strategies, different ideas, again, to heat our water. And then at the end, I'll talk a little bit about how that fits into the LEED and green building certification systems. And a huge thanks to our top tier sponsor, Ream, for allowing us to do these sessions and allow us to do what we do. And we'll be getting into that here later in the session and learning more about them, but check them out for all of your water heating needs wherever you are and whatever you're working on. And then also thanks to our second tier sponsor, the Great Lakes Passive House Supplies. Think frost protected shallow foundation ICFs with air heated radiant slab floor systems. So you can get a hold of Eldon over at totalicf@gmail.com to learn more about that. So I'm excited to introduce our speaker today, Tim Gauguin, the Regional Sales Manager and Utility and Energy Channel for Ream Manufacturing Company. Tim has 26-year veteran of Ream manufacturing and has held numerous positions during his tenure, all focused on driving high efficiency product solutions. Currently has the responsibility to introduce and promote high efficiency and energy related water heating products to utility and builder channels. He works in conjunction with the Ream's wholesale, retail, and commercial teams and channel partners to bring high efficient water heating solutions to the market. He is a graduate of the University of Dayton, where he earned a dual bachelor's degree in both management and finance. So with that, Tim, I will turn it over to you. And if you want to turn your camera on too, please do take it away.
All right, well, thank you, Brett. All right, here we go. All right, well, good afternoon, everyone. Thank you for the introduction, Brett, and thank you for inviting me to speak today on behalf of Green Home Institute. What we'd like to talk to you today, and again, subject matter is can hybrid heat pump water heating, can you heat your water with air? So let me get to the presentation mode and I'll commence. First of all, hybrid heat pump water heating is really not new. It's been around for decades. What is new is the technology advancements now that are incorporated in heat pump water heating that has become very, very accepted throughout the United States. And saying that, I can also tell you that the US, North America, are one of the last countries to adopt this type of heating of water. Okay, so let me commence. Why care about heat pump water heating? If you're unfamiliar, water heating represents the second highest energy use, energy user in the home. Heat pump water heaters are the most efficient way to heat water. Only technology over 100% efficient. Now, what does that mean? Okay, a traditional resistor, like let's use a 50-gallon as an example. The uniform energy factor or universal energy factor is roughly around 0.9293, okay? Where hybrid heat pump water heaters, UEF, okay, will range anywhere between a 3.5 all the way up to a 4.0. Now, in real terms, it's a significant payback, okay? For every dollar spent on a traditional 50-gallon resistor element, 92 to 93 cents are being utilized to heat that water. With a hybrid, you're literally getting up to $3 back for every dollar used, okay? So the economics of it is that you're realizing savings that could equate to $480, $450 a year. So as I said before, water heating represents second highest energy used in our home. But what is very relevant today, okay, especially in today's environmental climate, um, is that it's good for the environment. Um, you know, what we found in the last several years, and again, it's what we've all should be very conscientious of, is our environment. And hybrid heat pump water heater usage is a prime contributor to improving the environment. So what does that mean? Okay, it's all about carbon footprint reduction. And carbon footprint basically, uh, electric utilities use a variety of different input to generate energy. And traditionally, coal being the primary for years, but it has been found not necessarily great for the environment, the burning of coal. So they're actually starting to utilize alternative ways of generating energy. Now, for comparisons, okay, I make the statement 75% reduction in energy use. This has everything to do with the forms of generating energy by the utilities. So a hybrid heat pump water heater, okay, total carbon emissions of 846 pounds of CO per year. Now, when I first looked at this slide, I'm like, okay, that's great, but give me something to compare it to. So it has everything to do with, what does that mean? A traditional water heater, resistor element water heater. Now you're look at that number. It's significant. It's staggering of what actually that does in regards to contributing to the environment. So again, it's what, 486, okay? So again, great for the environment and also saves a significant amount of money. Now, I'm in the Midwest. I suspect there are a lot of people on this call also from the Midwest. And Midwest, traditionally, a lot of people will say it's a gas market, electric market. I mean, we know as a manufacturer that it's pretty much split down the middle. But where I'm here to show you, and this slide is a little dated, however, it's very relevant that these are the type of things that the DOE and other people that track this, we saw significant trends back in 2015. People were gravitating towards electric, okay, versus gas. Again, a good mix in most places. The South being the predominant source, and again, that has to do with relative availability and cost. But as you can see, throughout the US, it is rising significantly. Now, in so much is that the natural gas utilities are very aware of what's happening in the US currently. And the AGA, this slide was actually provided by the AGA, and actually identifies some areas of the country where they're keeping a close eye on electrification. Now, of course, hybrid heat pump water heating being a big contributor of that. Now, let me provide a little market overview, okay? And again, working for Rheem, we have a very good handle on regards to what's trending. We have to be prepared for that. And in the residential space, in 2020, there were 9.2 million tank type water heaters, okay, which represented a 7.7 or 7.7% growth in the US, okay. Now, our projected growth in 2021, we're really not expecting that to grow in the traditional style of water heater that everyone's accustomed to. Now, I'd be remiss if I didn't also recognize tankless. Now, tankless gas products have grown. They've been around for a long time as well. And as you can see, that in 2020, the industry grew 12.3%. Now that's all manufacturers combined, okay? And we're projecting about a 10% growth. Now what's really enlightening is the growth of hybrid heat pump water heating. And like I said, it's been around for a long time, but the technologies have really made it very appealing. And in 2021, we're expecting a 20% growth, and you can see the growth that we had in 2020. So this is actually taking some away from the overall residential growth, because that of the traditional resistor type of water heater. So I have a video that Brett's going to jump on and actually provide to you that gives a little background, a little insight to how a hybrid heat pump water heater works. So Brett, if you could take it away from here. Okay, we don't have any sound on that, Brett. I don't know if it worked properly or not. Well, I'll voice it as it's playing. That's fine. So we can keep. What happens is that a hybrid heat pump water heater actually draws the radiant heat that's in the air that surrounds it, okay, and it actually goes through an evaporator coil. The evaporator coil catches that heat and actually goes into a compressor. The compressor actually elevates the heat that's brought in and is actually then circulated through condenser coils that wrap around the outside of the tank itself. Now, the temperature is accelerated quite a bit. And let's say the average temperature, let's use a basement as an example, is around 65 degrees. Literally will double that temperature as it wraps around the outside of the tank. And that's what actually heats your water. And again, this is nothing more than just kind of a bullet point of what I just explained. Now, as I mentioned several times, there's been a significant amount of technology advancements, okay? And that's what has made the hybrid heat pump water heater very appealing to the average homeowner. These heaters now are very smart, regardless if it's a product made by Rheem or other manufacturers. Leak guard automatic sensing is now available on several models. Leak detection is available as well on some models. Integrated Econet Wi-Fi connections. Okay, these heaters are so smart that actually they can be provisioned on an app, or actually on a free app that's available through a lot of manufacturers, that you can actually take and actually provision the water heater in a variety of different ways, and it can actually show you temperatures. You can actually operate your water heater from your phone. Okay, as I said, remote control, that ties in with Econet. Now, Econet is just a form of connectivity, but they also are smart, and this is really geared more for not only the homeowner but the trade. It actually tells you, is it healthy? Is it working properly? It gives you compressor health, it gives you element health indicator, and hey, should this water heater be looked at by the trade? Okay, and is it working properly and providing what it should be providing? Now, some other things. Oh, hot water availability. This is my personal favorite, especially those that may have kids in the house. You never want to be the last one in, right? But now, to take a shower. However, now you can actually check on your phone, and it can validate maybe you need to wait a little bit or it's okay. So, my personal favorite. Now, good for the environment. I mentioned before that there are a lot of environmental motivators these days, especially for climate control. And these units, again, significantly higher. It's the highest efficient electric water heater in the country. Okay, carbon footprint reduction, again, environmentally friendly. Energy usage tracking. Now, this is what utilities look at when they're providing energy out to the general public. You now have what I would refer to as vision under the hood of how much energy this unit is actually utilizing. And you can modify your behaviors if need be to save yourself money. And of course, all these units are Energy Star rated. And why is that important? Because there are a lot of incentives out there that are provided by utilities in most cases, in most states, that you certainly homeowners can capitalize on the usage of these and take a little bit off the cost of the units themselves. Now, save energy and money. Okay, now again, this is applicable to all manufacturers. Saves money and energy, yes, we know that. Energy saving schedules. Okay, now you may not be aware, but most electric utilities have different rates at different times of the year. And I think this became very relevant out in California a few years ago when they had rolling blackouts due to usage. Well, the use of hybrid heat pump water heaters can actually help get away from that, because you can actually put it in different modes of operation to reflect what a peak versus a non-peak energy usage time would be. So what does that really mean? That means that you could put it in the most energy efficient mode of operation during peak times. So you're drawing less electricity from the grid and still providing yourself with the hot water that you become accustomed to, and saves you money in the long run as well. Built-in demand response. This is a provision that's very much interesting to utilities, because this has everything to do with I just explained about peak and non-peak times. There is a push in certain parts of the country where the utility is actually locked into your appliances, specifically your water heater, that they can actually manage the use of that product to make sure that excess energy is not being utilized to avoid problems. I'll even use Texas as an example, where there's poor souls, they were really caught in a bind during the polar vortex. Built-in demand response down the line certainly would have helped eliminate some of those challenges that they experienced. And of course, vacation and away mode. You can actually turn your water heater, if you're going away for any period of time, you can actually provision that water heater to work in the most energy efficient way and actually drop the temperature within that unit. So it draws very little electricity whatsoever while you're away. So you're not heating water that's not being utilized. Now, there are multiple choices out there, okay? There are provisions for builders, there are provisions for general usage, but I really wanted to bring to your attention certain features of the models that are out there. Traditionally, the 50-gallon, 65, and 80 have been the models that have been out for several years. Some manufacturers have introduced now a 40. Okay, so again, if you have homeowners that are out there that really don't have a lot of people in the home for usage purposes, maybe, or space limitations, maybe the 40 would be what they would utilize. Okay. Remote access, integrated Wi-Fi. Again, these units are becoming smarter and smarter and smarter. Zero clearance requirement. Why is this important? Now, some manufacturers have this, some don't. A zero clearance requirement really enables a homeowner to put this in a closet, okay? And if they're space limited, if they don't have a basement, let's say it's a home that was built in the 70s on a slab, they don't have a basement, right? So they can actually put this in a closet. Some manufacturers, and again, some of the things that people brought up that are a concern of them is say, well, we're the plumbing trade, we really don't deal with refrigerant. We really don't want to touch the coil that's, out of our expertise. Some manufacturers don't require you to do that. And that's why we can say zero clearance, okay? Because really there's nothing more than you would need to do other than remove the media filter that's on the top of the unit, and in most cases that you need about a 6 to 8 inch clearance in order to do that. Widest range of ambient temp. Okay, now what does that mean? During the presentation earlier, I mentioned that it actually captures the residual heat of the air in order to operate the unit. And now there are limitations in regards to the air that it draws in. Now, please keep in mind, especially in the state of Michigan, these units would not be outside, and I would never recommend putting them outside unless you're maybe in Florida or California, where actually you can put this in a garage, okay, because the temperatures don't get that low. But the ambient temperature ranges can go as low as 37 degrees, can go as high as 140 degrees in most cases. So the unit will work perfectly provided it has enough usable air for the heat pump to work properly. Now, in the event that it's subjected to air that is below that temperature or above that temperature, that means that the heat pump typically will turn off, but the hybrid means that the elements are still, if you can see that picture, the elements are still in that unit. So the elements would kick in. So you're not going to be you will not be without hot water, however, will not be running in the most efficient way. Now, less than 2-year payback. Yeah, that's not a misprint. In lieu of any rebates, in lieu of any federal incentives that are out there, the cost savings alone over a 2-year period of time pays for itself, okay? And some units actually meet NEA, which is a more of a Northwestern code in regards to efficiency. And this unit and most units will hit the NEA Tier 3. And of course, leak detection. Now, leak detection, again, whether it's in already equipped within the unit or say a part that can be provisioned on the unit, these work very well with that. Now, as I said, the first one was a builder model. Okay, now the general, and again, all manufacturers have different variations of this. There is one manufacturer actually that has reached a 4.0 UEF. Okay, now that's on an 80-gallon model. Now, demand response ready, CTA 2045. This has everything to do with the utility utilizing on the grid control of that water heater. And I won't go into detail on that, but this is something that is being looked at by utilities across the United States as a viable option for reducing overall energy usage and control of electric appliances within the home, specifically water heating. Now, again, this does have a fan. So one concern of a homeowner would be, well, how loud is this unit? Is it going to make a lot of noise within a home? I'm very glad to say that there are some manufacturers that have less than a 50 decibel rating. Now, a decibel rating would be nothing more than a conversation, really. In fact, it would be higher than 50 decibels. Due to technology, especially for the trade, it gives you automatic maintenance alerts. These units have 10-year warranties, okay? And a traditional resistor element type of, like a 50-gallon as an example, traditionally is 6 years. So again, spread over a 10-year based on a $480 cost savings of operating this unit, the homeowner can actually save $4,800 over 10 years, okay? And again, I mentioned earlier, leak detection, shut-off valve ready. And of course, some models will even get to a higher tier, which is Tier 4 with NEA. And that has everything to do with the higher UEF, as well as how often the elements will come on, if in the most energy-saving mode possible. And of course, some of them have that technology already integrated into the unit. So again, that is also available from some manufacturers. Now, I'm taking the approach. The one thing you have to realize is that since a hybrid heat pump water heater does utilize 3 sources of heating the water, the primary source, of course, would be the heat pump that's provisioned on top of the unit, but it does have element backup, okay? So what does that mean? That means that a hybrid heat pump water heater, the first hour delivery will be anywhere between 4 to 8 gallons of additional hot water than what you'd receive from a standard 50-gallon resistor element, okay? Now, taking that into account, rule of thumb, okay, and we've actually identified 4 different sizes, a 40-gallon all the way to an 80. So I'm in the Midwest, so I do realize that the incoming temperature of the water is a bit lower than it would be in Florida, and this is actually calculated based on that that condition. So a 40-gallon would deliver 3 hot 8-minute showers back to back, okay? And all the way up to an 80 if you have a bigger family or more, more people in the home that would be taking showers, you can actually get 6, okay? 8-minute showers back to back. Now, this is what I call where the rubber hits the road, okay? And this is the ROI based upon a NACA 2 standard. Now, this is a unit, traditional resistor element that was manufactured back in 2003, 2004, because traditionally those are the units that would need to be replaced, okay, and are regularly being replaced every day. So we use that as a comparison. So, the first column will show you what the initial investment in lieu of any rebates or federal tax incentives. So a 50-gallon hybrid at a 30 watt or 30 amps is roughly around $1,300. Okay, where a traditional electric cost is somewhere around $420. Now, what's really revealing is the annual operating cost. If you look at a hybrid utilized in a hybrid mode only, or excuse me, in the heat pump mode only, is roughly going to cost about $104. Okay, based on a 12 kilowatt per hour cost. And again, you'd have to look at your local utilities and see where that rate falls. Some could be higher, some could be lower. And the standard 50-gallon electric is around $585. So there's your cost savings. That's where you come $480 annually that you'd be saving with the operation of this unit. Now, we did recommend or recognize a local rebate of $500. That seems to be out there in most states. I know Michigan, there are some incentives that are out there. And of course, there is a $300 federal tax credit that's applicable. Now, taking into account those factors, this unit literally pays for itself within 2 months. Okay, and don't forget, this unit is actually warranted for 10 years. So the initial investment is significant. The savings, once you use it, 2 months, it literally paid for itself. And okay, I know in some areas you're going to compare electric to gas. So we actually took the energy guides, and these are on all your appliances that come out, and basically what your estimated yearly energy costs are. Now, I've already identified what a heat pump would be at $104, right? Now you look at what a standard, now this is an under-fired standard 50-gallon gas. Now, I'll bring it up, is that, yeah, your delivery is going to be slightly higher on your first hour rating on a gas, but if it's sized properly, it really should not conflict with what you're expecting in regards to your hot water demand and what your usage would be. Now, some of the messaging, and again, we've identified certain areas and certain, I guess, categories of what's important, okay? So plumbers, it's smart, right? So I mentioned earlier that it gives health alerts and things like that, right? So knowing that a lot of these units can have apps that can actually operate the unit, it gives not only audible within the home itself, but actually can identify on the app itself if there's a problem going on. And again, proactively instead of reactively. Sustainability, okay? Again, I've already recognized there are units up there to go to 4.0, so it's most efficient out there. And it's a good story when contractors are talking to homeowners, because everyone's into saving money. Savings pays for itself in 2 years. We've already gone through that on the ROI. And of course, okay, get out of here. Let's see. All right. So, okay, it's not advancing. I apologize for that.
Hey, Tim, go ahead and just shut it down again like last time and restart it.
Okay. Sorry, everybody.
Does that every now and then.
Okay. Yeah.
Still stuck?
So, yeah. Quickly going to a connected community, a connected homeowner. Most people are on their phones most of the time. They want control. So now you have that ability to actually control your unit, as I mentioned earlier. But not only that, but there are some technological advancements that actually you could do your own scheduling in regards to how this actually unit operates, as I mentioned before, peak versus non-peak. So Brett, you go to the next one, under sustainable. Okay, so again, and very much environmentally friendly. I use the example of carbon footprint reduction, and again, how utilities are getting away from unfriendly, or at least viewed unfriendly, sources of generating energy. So again, this one fits the ticket. And on savings, most efficient electric water heater out there, again, saving $480 per year. Okay, now from a builder's perspective, okay, space saving design. Builders typically don't get a lot of payback from huge utility rooms, and you're seeing a lot of tight spaces now in homes. They want more livable space. This unit can fit in a closet. Okay, now sustainability from a builder's perspective. This has everything to do with HERS ratings. Now, those of you that may not be familiar with HERS ratings, it's basically, in layman's terms, the overall energy envelope of the home. And heat pump water heaters can actually improve that score from anywhere from 3 to 7 points. Okay, and there are incentives out there for superior HERS ratings, and most home builders are actually designing homes now with that in mind. And of course, savings, that's a recurring theme. Again, you're saving $480 per year over a standard resistored element 50-gallon, as I used in all my examples. Okay, next slide. User interface. Okay, and again, I put some of these slides in here. This may be different for some manufacturers. I'm going to go with what I'm familiar with, and that's of course the pad on ream. And I wanted to show you just how simple it is to provision the water heater while you're in front of it. Next, Brett. Okay, so this is an example of what you'd be seeing standing in front of the water heater. Okay, now I'm not going to go through every one of these instructions on how to do and utilize every one of these buttons, but I did want to bring to your attention, among other things, of course, how to adjust your temperature, as well as the mode selection. So Brett, if you go to the next slide. Okay, modes of operation. So all manufacturers have different modes. Energy saver typically is our default mode. Now, energy saver mode basically means that your heat pump is your primary source of heating the water. In the event that the demand is greater than what the heat pump can provide based on what is being requested of the water heater, the elements will actually rotate in, and they don't come on simultaneously. They will come on non-simultaneously, rotate up and down, obviously, and that's to maintain your amperage draw, and so it will never exceed 30 amps. Now, the heat pump mode can be provisioned in the unit where the elements are actually taking out of that, okay? And when you take the elements out of it, you have to expect a little longer recovery time on that unit, but again, learning how it operates shouldn't disrupt your normal pattern of taking showers or utilizing of hot water. Now, high demand mode, why would you use high demand mode? Let's say you have, let's use Christmas as the example, where you have guests coming over and they're staying with you for a little while. So you would put in a high demand mode. Now, high demand mode means that the heat pump actually will be the primary source, but the elements will kick in as well. Okay, so now you're actually utilizing as if you would with a standard 50-gallon resistor element heater, but now the heat pump is adding additional heat into that water. Now, the electric mode is basically all you're doing is taking the heat pump out of that, but all you're utilizing is the electric mode. Now, why would someone do that, right? You're not really saving money. You're not really utilizing that unit for what it was intended for. If you're going to use it in the electric mode, then for some reason, maybe you have air, maybe it heats out in the house. You know that the temperature in that house, heaven forbid, gets below 37 degrees. The electric mode is a good mode to put it in that case. Now the vacation mode, again, you can put in vacation mode. And the nice part about the vacation mode is that if you put in the vacation mode, it will actually save or go to 65 degrees, and it will keep the temperature at 65 degrees in the tank itself for up to 28 days. After 28 days, it will automatically go back to the energy saver mode. So it's a smart water heater. It will actually go back to, and that's the default mode. If you put it in the high demand mode, where it's, obviously using more energy, it will go back to the energy saver mode within 10 days. If it's in the electric mode, within 10 days, it will go back and always try to save the homeowner money. Okay, next slide, Brett. This is nothing more than just a chart for explanation purposes. I've had all the modes identified, except of course for the vacation setting. But you can see where the efficiency lies and where the sweet spots are, as well as the recovery. So if you want to put it in energy saver mode, we consider that the sweet spot, because not only are you getting the high efficiency, but you're also getting the fast recovery. Okay, next. Okay, some components, okay, that are provisioned in some of these water heaters. So Brett, if you press the next. Okay. Most people have actually provisioned their water heaters with very customer-friendly or consumer-friendly displays, okay? Easy control, easy adjustments. Some units even have diagnostics for contractors. When they go in, they can actually go in there and hook up to the water heater, go through and see, gives you a history. What's been happening with this water heater? Is it an element issue? Is it a compressor issue? We'll tell you all that. Okay, next. Okay, maintenance alerts. This unit is smart enough, will tell you that if it's not getting proper air through the media filter or the air filter, it's time to change it, or not change it, but actually clean it out. These are, it's not like a forced air furnace where you go get, your filters and replace them. This is a very pliable filter. You pull out, you can actually vacuum it off. You can actually wash it in the sink or the stationary tub if you happen to have one of those. Most manufacturers require 6 inches. I'm always going to recommend 6 to 8 inches. But again, it will give you a maintenance alert, not only on your phone, but an audible alert when these need to be cleaned in order for the unit to be working properly. Next. Okay, leak sense, leak detection. As someone who's been with a water heater manufacturer for 27 years, typically we've learned from experience, the only time you worry about your water heater really is that, okay, if it's just not giving you enough hot water, or if it's leaking, okay? And manufacturers have been smart enough to now start provisioning water heaters with leak detection, and some utilize this by incorporating what we call a wick that goes down into a drain pan close to the water heater. Some have actually put the wick at the very bottom of the heater itself. So anywhere that there would be a leak, it will sense it. Now, what I'm familiar with is, R360 leak detection at the bottom of the heater itself. And in the event you do have a leak, it will give you an audible alert on the unit itself, as well as an audible or a message on your app on your smartphone as well. And just because it got wet doesn't mean that you need another one. Okay, you can actually replace it if you need to, but you can actually remove that and have it dried out and then reinstall. Okay, but I would recommend certainly going to the trade on that. I wouldn't suggest a homeowner doing that. Okay, next. Okay, I mentioned about provisioning a wick. again, they have a thing called a leak sense that actually you would remove the bottom cover and hook that wick up to the bottom cover and drop it down to the bottom. So next slide. Okay, leak guard. Now, some manufacturers, and again, I'm going to speak to what I'm familiar with, is an automatic shutoff. If you have a leak, that leak will continue to be a leak. However, with a leak guard automatic shutoff, what will happen is that if a leak is detected, next slide or next advancement. Okay, so I'm going to give you an example. It takes about 15 seconds, okay, detection time, and that's not a lot of time. What will happen, Brett, if you could advance? It will send a message over to the leak guard. The leak guard then will actually activate. Now, what does the leak guard do? The leak guard actually turns the water off, going to the water heater itself. So it virtually stops the leak. Okay. Now, this is a mechanical device. So every 24 hours, it's going to activate to make sure that in hard calcium areas, it doesn't seize up. So it's actually protecting itself to make sure that it works properly. If indeed this event does happen, it's going to tell the homeowner on the app that this event had taken place, but they could be assured that they don't go home to a basement that has water all over it, or in a closet where the water could damage the home. And then automatically, once they get that notification, they can reach out to their installing contractor. Hey, we need you to come out. We're going to meet you at the house and we'll take care of that. Okay, next slide. Okay, what stayed the same? As I told you, technology advancements have really allowed the heat pump water heater to become very popular. But what stayed the same in the units over the years is that 208, 240 volt, okay, 30 amps. Some actually have a 15 amp service in some of those homes that may not have reliable 30 amp service. Can be transported on its side. Most manufacturers now have actually made their compressors so robust, because when these units came out earlier, they had to be stood up in the back of a truck, but most manufacturers recognized that that was not happening, which caused havoc with the compressors. So now they can be laid down on their side. Can be placed against a wall. This in previous slides, I talk about zero clearance. Now, some have that ability, some do not. They are 100% plumber serviceable. Why is that? Is that some manufacturers, again, have taken the position, if something happens with the heat pump, we don't want anybody touching it, replacing it, trying to fix it, okay? If that's the case, the only thing the plumber would really be looking at is the control panel and the elements, okay, which they've been accustomed to doing for years. Next. EcoNet. Okay, and again, that's our terminology, meaning Ream's terminology for connectivity. Now, again, I'm going to speak to as if a homeowner wants to connect their water heater. We try to make it as simple as possible. So how to connect? Brett, the next one. Okay, you press and hold the Wi-Fi button for 5 seconds, okay, and it's actually going to start blinking. Once it goes to a solid, now it's ready to be paired, okay? So if there is Wi-Fi in the house, there is a series of things that will need to be done, but it's fairly simple as if you're hooking up your computer, nothing more than just following the steps that you would in order to do that. Okay, next. Okay, I'm going to spend a little time on the app, because again, this is a great feature that actually puts the control of the water heater into the homeowner's hands. Okay, and let's navigate through this a little bit. So next slide. Okay, on the app itself, you'll see there are a variety of things that actually not only gives view to the homeowner, but it actually gives the ability to the homeowner to start actually provisioning that water heater to replicate what utilities look at. So next slide, Brett. Okay, let's look at scheduling. The scheduling feature on the app, and again, this is not applicable to some manufacturers, but some it is. On the app, there's 4 different time blocks that can be utilized. And this goes back, as I've mentioned earlier, to what utilities look at, peak versus non-peak, okay? So you can go into this app and you can actually set your temperature of the water. You have 4 different ways to, or 4 different times of the day you can do this. And you can put what mode it's going to operate in. Now, if you look at the previous slide, the heat pump mode is the most energy efficient mode at all, okay? So in the event during a peak time that you've recognized that you're using the most energy, you could put it in the heat pump mode, and it's going to draw the least amount of energy by and large throughout the day, okay? Now, the energy saver mode, again, is the default mode, and that's ultimately where you're going to wind up, okay? Next slide. Now, I mentioned energy usage reports. This is a good view of what the homeowner would actually see. How many kilowatts are being used weekly, monthly, and yearly? And looking at this, they can see based upon the time of the day or the time of the year, how much energy they're using. So why is that important? Because they can change their behaviors and their habits, if need be, to save energy. Okay, next. Product health. Again, this is more relevant to the contractors that may be on the call, but this information can actually be shared via the app from the homeowner to the contractor. And this will actually give you a view of, hey, something's going on with the elements, something's going on with the compressor. And I think, you know, knowing the contractor base, knowing before they go in what they need to be looking at saves them time and money, and makes for a very happy homeowner in regards to any type of adjustments that need to be done on the water heater. Next. Installation. Okay. Now, I put just a very rudimentary example of how you would install this water heater. So next slide. This would be applicable to Rheem as much as any other manufacturer out there, okay? So the typical installation of a hybrid heat pump water heater installs very much like a standard electric water heater with a couple exceptions, okay? The exception would be knowing that this draws heat out of the air of where it's provisioned, is that in heat there is also moisture. So this is a condensating unit, okay? Now, being that's a condensating unit, okay, or it creates condensate, I should say, it actually acts as a dehumidifier, okay? So in the winter months, again, being in the Midwest, if you're like me, you have a dehumidifier in the summertime that to get the extra moisture out of the room, or you have that kind of a musty smell, right? The hybrid heat pump water heater virtually eliminates, based on the size of the room, mind you, okay, the use of a dehumidifier, okay? Now, knowing that it does capture that residual heat, you have to provision a line on the unit itself for the condensate to go into the drain. And we always recommend that there's about a 6-inch gap before it gets to the drain. Why do we make that recommendation? Because we don't want to run into the event where actually the drain clogs up for whatever reason and causes that condensate to back up into the unit itself. Okay. Also, previously I mentioned about you need at least 6 inches at the very top to get the media filter out. And of course, I always say 6 to 8. So next slide. You can actually vent these units. Okay. Now, some are provisioned with duct adapters, some are not. A very inexpensive item if it's not. But in the event that you have an area that you're concerned that the temperature that it's producing is cooling off where it's installed, and again, you can expect about a 6 to 8 inch or 6 to 8 degree drop of where it's being used when it's in operation. Depending on the size of where, you may not even feel it. If it's a very small space where it's maybe a finished basement, a small finished basement, or on a slab or something where it's generally used, you can duct it. And you can duct up to 125 feet, you at 8 inch. Okay, and it's not one of those plastic vents. It's something you can get in an HVAC house. You may even get it at a retailer. It's just air movement. The air movement is very minimal. Okay, now you can duct the air as you're drawing in the air, or you can duct it to the byproducts coming out from the operation of the unit itself. Okay, next slide, please. Just some accessories and parts that are available out there. Next. Okay, here's some examples of no ducting. Okay, in the event you want to use a basement, okay, option one, you have 700 cubic square feet, and this is going to be different for all manufacturers, but I use what I'm familiar with, 700 cubic square feet. You don't have to worry about any ducting whatsoever. Option two, if you want to put it in a closet, okay, you can, as long as it has a 3/4 inch gap at the bottom for air intake, and then you have to have louvered at the very top, and you have to provision the exhaust towards those louvers to eliminate any back pressure building up in the closet itself. Option three, if you're going to utilization of a closet, option three is probably the most preferred, a fully louvered door. Now you don't have to worry about where that unit is provisioned for your air intake or outtake, because it has enough usable air. It's just access to where it's installed. And the next slide. Okay, so that concludes my presentation in regards to heat pump water heating and how air can be utilized in order to heat water. Couple things of why heat pump water heater wins is that they're the highest efficient electric water heater out there. It's the quietest, zero clearance, connectivity, leak detection. The recovery is outstanding, and 10-year warranty. My email address and phone number is on this slide if you'd like to reach out to me for any questions, but I can certainly take questions now if you have some. And Brett is also manning the chat box, and he can actually ask the questions to me, and I can get back with answers, or if I don't know the answer, certainly we'll get back. And please write down my email address and send me an email. If something that you don't want to put out for the crowd now, I'll be glad to get back to you. So again, thanks for Greenhouse Institute for the opportunity to explain about how heat pump water heater works and the advantages that it provides the homeowner. And any questions, I'm available. Okay, no questions.
How about now? Can you hear me, Tim?
Yeah, hear you fine.
Perfect. So yeah, real quick, before we get to those questions, just want to let everybody know, if you got to get going, feel free to go ahead and take off. We are at our time. You're approved for your CU, but we'd love to have you stick around and have a little dialogue as well. We see a lot of questions coming in. We're going to get to them. If you need your certificate, check your spam, customer care at GoToWebinar. You can find your certificate there, and you can find the survey. Please take it. For those of you watching this in the future, not right now, on demand, go into our Thinkific channel or the USGBC channel and take that quiz with an 80% passing rate, and then you can pick up your CU certificate that way. And as always, a huge thanks to our board of directors, our volunteers, our new executive director, and our top tier sponsors that are helping you build better, and we couldn't do this without them. Mitsubishi Electric, Build, Equinox, Serve, and Rheem. Huge thanks to them and all of our sponsors. Before we get to those questions, I did promise that I would try to align how systems like this fit into green building and LEED. So I'm just going to briefly cover that. You've heard a lot of these things before, but just briefly letting you know, heat pump water heaters fit in a couple different places in the LEED rating system. So the first one is annual energy use. So what we're going to basically do is the HERS index rating, the energy rating. We're going to drive, Tim spoke to that a little bit in the session. We're going to drive that HERS rating down, and we're going to get more LEED energy points by doing that, by using these systems. Ignore that the text there on the, oh, it looks like my screen has not been progressing any of this time. So apologize for that. Here we go. So anyway, there's the annual energy use credit right there. So check that one out. So again, the HERS index rating is good, but when you're looking at moving to electrification, the lead energy budget typically does a lot better when you're looking at electric systems in a home. And so you'll need to look at both of those in lead V4, the HERS rating or the lead energy budget. They're both derived by the ResNet, so work with your rater to figure that out. The other thing you need to know, and a lot of you are asking this question in the chat, and the other thing you need to know about the ResNet rating system program is that your water, your space heating energy use requirements in most cases do increase when you model the heat pump water heater. And I don't know if the systems have gotten savvy enough, but when you model them at least unducted, it does increase the energy heating demand. And so you'll see that in the REM rate model. And so Tim, unless you know of something I don't, you had mentioned the 6 to 8 degree temperature increase. But outside of that, it's hard to know what your actual energy demand will go up by. And so the REM rate model will tell you that when you go to model these systems compared to electric or gas, you will see that increased cost in heating, but you'll also see a decreased cost in cooling because these systems are also cooling the space that too, in the summertime. So it has that reverse benefit. So if you're concerned about that, look at the REM rating system tool and some of the other certification programs. WUFI, I'm sure Passive House evaluate that too. The other thing to know is you automatically will get the, at least for the water heating side, the combustion venting, right? There's no combustion to vent, no need to vent it. So you automatically get that point. So that's a bonus giveaway point for you. And then from a durability standpoint, this is a pretty neat one. As Tim had pointed out, tank water heaters in or above living spaces under the MR durability section for lead must have a drain or drain pan, or, which you should have that, I mean, highly recommend it, or you want to have some sort of automatic water shutoff, which these units Tim mentioned do have. So that's another required component of the lead rating system and how these water heaters fit in. So the MR, the EQ, and the energy side of that. So getting into some of the other questions here, we want to get to some of those. Let me kind of backtrack here to get into one of them. I don't know if any of you still have any questions about some of the northern climate. I know at one point you all had typically recommended that in northern climates, in most cases, you should try to duct these systems. Is that still kind of a blanket recommendation you make now, or is that a little more nuanced?
That's a good question. This has everything to do with NEA, and we're very proud as a manufacturer that we hit the NEA 3 and NEA 4 because it is a northern climate code. These units should never really be ducted to the outside, okay? Because again, you're going to see temperatures well below the 37 threshold of where the heat pump cools off. Don't forget that these units typically are installed in homes, okay? So whatever the temperature of the home is what it's being subjected to, okay?
Yeah, that's a good point. And then I had seen like the closet approach, some folks recommending to actually add an additional higher MERV filter into the closet door to protect the unit. Have you heard anything of that or any thoughts there?
I have not. I think when you're talking about additional, I guess, kind of protection through the louvers, don't forget the units will tell you when that media filter would need to be cleaned. My biggest fear is that if you're going to put some type of protective filter on the louvers to protect the air going into the unit, you also may restrict the airflow going to the unit itself. And again, being a smart heater, they will tell you when that media filter would need to be replaced. And I'm going to use this comparison to a furnace filter. So if you're afraid that the furnace filter is going to get too much lint or anything on it, and you're going to put it in a room that's protected, you may starve it from air, which actually will help. It will not enhance the operation of the unit. It may actually hurt it.
Mhm. Yeah. So, you mentioned a lot of comparisons to traditional resistance electric heating, which makes sense. But, can you talk a little bit about comparisons to energy and costs from those switching to gas? Where we are, most folks have gas systems. I'll just tell you anecdotally from my experience. I installed one of these in 2018, and I couldn't give a noticeable difference in my electric bills, with all things being equal over the last 2 years, of a bump in electric costs from switching from a fully gas water heater to one of these. That's just my personal experience. I finally plugged in my app, and you can see here I got about 63 kilowatt hours last month. And to put that into perspective, that was about 10% of my energy usage in my home. I'm all electric now, so it was very little. So Tim, I don't know, can you speak to how it compares to gas?
Uh, I can't speak to that, but again, I'm going to put this in the category, if it's a personal decision, whether what's motivated by energy use or gas use or environmental motivations, that would determine, someone would go from electric to gas based on a hybrid heat pump utilization. I'm not really here to speak negatively about gas, just the advantages of utilization of a hybrid heat pump water heater, what it would reflect in regards to environmentally friendly, as well as reducing your overall energy load.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, so let's talk about some different systems. We see these hybrid heating systems where you sort of have the heat pump work until it gets really cold and then the gas fires up. Is there anything like that on the water heating side, or do you see any plans for anything like that?
Where you utilize, you mean a gas heat pump water heater?
Like a dual fuel hybrid, we'll put it that way. Yeah.
It's not something that I've been made aware of that we're looking at. I'm not saying that it's not, but it's not something that I have any visibility to.
Mm-hmm. And then what about these split system heat pump water heaters that have alternative refrigerants like CO2? I mean, what are you seeing or hearing or thoughts on those?
Everyone is looking at improving already a superior product, and they're looking at alternatives. I mean, this is this the future? I think it's the present and the future. So it would not surprise me if things like this are actually being looked at moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Let's see what other questions you had in here. So there, I mean, there was a specific question here, but I know when the furnace, it's, first of all, just to reiterate, it's okay to have the furnace, the HVAC system, next to the heat pump water heater. And then to add to that, if I understand right, some of these older gas systems, they're kind of putting out additional heat that is goes unused, right? I mean, is that a great pairing with something like this?
That's a great pairing. In fact, I've made that comparisons in many of my presentations, where if the heater is close in relation to the furnace itself, the furnace itself, especially the older ones, not the 90 plus so much, but the 80 plus, it does put off residual heat. So it's actually drawing in warmer air, which your recovery is going to be a bit better than it would if it was just a standalone in a closet somewhere.
Hmm. Yeah, and from my experience when we had our old gas water heater, it didn't cool the room just as much, but it still cooled it. But now that we're fully heat pump and all sealed up, the room gets a little bit colder in the winter, but it doesn't affect the rest of the house. So it's great. You don't even notice the difference in the dead of winter. But let's see. The other question is, let's see. There are quite a bit of questions in here, which is great. A lot of great comments. Let's see. Um, okay, so the question was, you said that there were 3 heat sources: hybrid heater, heat pump, okay, heat pump, electric element, and the third was what?
Well, actually, two. I mean, you have the heat pump and the elements. And I think what the confusion was is the elements don't come on simultaneously. They're non-simultaneously wired, so they will rotate back and forth. And that's to make sure that the amp draw does not exceed 30 amps on the service.
Got it.
But the heat pump would be your primary source of heating the water, and the elements would be your secondary.
Right, yeah. So there was one question about, why not circulate the water through the unit as opposed to the refrigerant wrapped around the tank?
It has everything to do with water quality and the
Okay.
adverse effects it would have on the coil. It's better to have the residual heat coming through the coil from the outside of the tank itself and just permeate into the water that way.
Yeah. Well, we are a little bit over our time, but I appreciate you sticking around with us. I don't see any other specific questions. I guess my question is first, where, if people want to get one of these or they want to become installers, where do they go to find it? And then are there special trainings that are needed for installers? And then where can, just remind everyone where they can contact you to learn more.
Well, certainly, yeah, my email address is there, and my phone number has also been provided. Hybrid heat pump water heaters, irrelevant to the manufacturer, are very available through the retail space, through the wholesale space. I know there are organizations in different states that really do a tremendous amount of training. I know us as a manufacturer, we have master plumbers that go out and put on training sessions, hands-on training sessions. Unfortunately, that's not been exercised too much in this past year, but I suspect by late summer, maybe this summer, those type of events will be made available in your local markets, or you can request, and certainly we can provide, based on availability, that type of training.
Do you have any like really good installation videos that are available?
Well, you could probably find them on YouTube. I mean, we do have some links that will show how to install, but again, these install not much different than a standard electric water heater. The only provisionally different would be the venting of these units, which again, you can find that on YouTube.
So
Just
if you want,
pull up Bream hybrid heat pump, or just put hybrid heat pump water heater installation videos, and you should be able to pull that up, and I'm sure that's on there.
so if you're not venting it, then really it's just kind of plug and play, same setup as an electric water heater, right?
That's exactly right, with the exception of making sure you have the 6 to 8 inches clearance on the top, and you're making sure that it has a condensate line
Got it.
that is being provisioned towards the drain.
Yep, got it. All right, Tim. Well, we thank you. We thank Reem so much for your time. And we'll catch you all on our next session next week. We're going to continue our conversation about more energy efficient strategies for plumbing. So thank you all. Be safe, be well, and take care.
Be sure to check out all of our courses available online that you can watch anytime and anywhere to pick up your CEUs. Before you go, make sure to subscribe to us on YouTube to get weekly updates and stay up to date on green building science courses, webinars, and home tours. Thanks again.